Panting heavily from her escape, she desperately wondered if making it this far meant she was safe. A sudden whoosh of air broke the tense silence as she tried to catch her breath. Startled by a voice declaring her presence, she hoped her secret identity remained completely undiscovered. Shock and confusion washed over her face as she demanded to know why this happened. The attacker angrily accused the vice leader of betraying their team by being with him. Glaring with bitter resentment, the rival coldly demanded that she just hurry up and lose. A desperate cry for the boss echoed through the air as the devastating attack landed. Everything instantly faded into empty darkness as the brutal impact knocked her completely out cold. Slowly blinking her heavy eyes open, she groggily looked around and wondered where she was. Groaning in sudden pain, she clutched her aching head while realizing she could remember nothing. Looking down at her battered body, she questioned why she was tightly wrapped in bandages. A deep sense of confusion washed over her as she noticed something strangely catching her eye. Staring into a nearby mirror, she gazed at an unfamiliar reflection and wondered who it was. Gasping in sudden shock, she quickly realized that she had definitely seen this face before. The truth hit her upon recognizing Dalia Agnes from Kaori's absolute favorite romance Otome game. She vividly recalled that Dalia Agnes was notoriously known throughout the game as the tragic Villainess. The character's dark backstory flooded her mind, starting with her mother dying right after her birth. Her stepmother and half-sister Nanazelia made her life hell by horribly starving, whipping, and humiliating her. Tragically, neither her neglectful father nor the household maids ever tried to save the suffering girl. She remembered these severe bandage injuries came from a whipping punishment orchestrated by her half-sister. Starving for familial affection, the desperate girl lost sight of everything and became the cruel Villainess. After enduring endless punishments while only wanting someone to truly love her, Dalia finally passed away. Trembling with profound disbelief, she finally pieced the truth together and realized she reincarnated as Dalia. She could hardly believe Dalia lived through constant bullying only to become a doomed, dead Villainess. Although still completely confused about the situation, she clenched her fists and firmly made her decision. With fierce determination, she vowed to break the game's tragic story and give Dalia a happy ending. Pondering her next move, she carefully considered exactly how to forge that elusive happy ending. She remembered Dalia's ruin began by becoming a fiancé candidate for the first prince, Heterogrady. Realizing the obvious solution, she decided the easiest survival route was avoiding that deadly fiancé selection. Looking deeply inward, she softly questioned what the original Dalia truly desired from this painful life. Vivid flashes of deeply buried memories silently washed over her as she searched for genuine answers. A majestic memory surfaced of a fearless warrior wielding a shining sword with incredibly cool precision. Watching the elegant strikes in her mind, she deeply admired how wonderfully they fought in combat. She suddenly realized that the quiet, battered girl had always secretly longed to be truly strong. Chuckling softly at the revelation, she repeated the word strong while a confident smile slowly formed. Remembering her past life, she recalled working incredibly hard to grow her gang and become stronger. Merging their aspirations together, she hoped to make both Kaori's and Dalia's empowering dreams come true. Excitement sparked as she remembered the royal knights famously accepted absolutely anyone regardless of social status. Gathering her newfound courage and resolve, she fiercely declared that she was fully committing to this. Standing tall with unwavering confidence, she proudly vowed to rise to the very top as a knight. Realizing her fragile state, she vows to heal up and build some stamina first. Resting quietly in her dim room, she patiently allows her battered body time to slowly recover. Clutching her empty stomach, she groans quietly while realizing that she is absolutely starving. Staying holed up in her room, she wonders about doing strength training with this meager food. She realizes she cannot count on any maids because they are probably on her stepmother's side. Wanting to defeat Dalia's abusers despite her scrawny body, she sneaks out seeking leftover kitchen food. Startled by a sudden shout asking what she is doing, she internally curses her terrible luck. Freezing in absolute shock, she turns around nervously as panic courses through her fragile, trembling body. Hearing a stern voice mutter about the madam, she freezes in place while anticipating severe punishment. Blinking her wide eyes in utter confusion, she lets out a quiet gasp of pure bewilderment. Regretting missing her chance to run, she desperately figures she will have to punch her way out. Her tense posture immediately drops as she surprisingly recognizes the imposing figure as the head butler. Looking at her with mild concern, the older gentleman politely asks if everything is perfectly all right. Sweating profusely under his intense gaze, she frantically panics and assumes that she is completely screwed. Caught off guard by his gentle tone, she stammers awkwardly and quickly insists it is nothing. Attempting a clever diversion, she thanks him for working late while claiming she just wanted a drink. The heavy door gently clicks shut, leaving an awkward but quiet tension hanging in the air. After confirming she is Lady Dalia, the polite butler suddenly asks her to wait a moment. Reaching into his formal coat, the older man kindly presents a small offering directly to her. Receiving the modest food, she listens as he deeply apologizes for only offering the beloved daughter this. Gratefully thanking him, she internally wonders if this kind old man actually knew her birth mother. Holding the meal, she feels genuinely glad having at least one person on Dalia's side here. Despite the lucky break, she realistically acknowledges that not every single day will go this well. Sitting alone in her room once more, she sighs heavily and wonders what she should do next. Looking down at her provided meal, she gasps in pure shock and wonders what is happening. Staring at the tray, she happily realizes there is significantly more food than she received before. Enjoying the really good meal, she happily suspects the kind butler secretly made these generous arrangements. With food handled, she worries about lacking a sword and making the night trial in time. Hearing loud voices outside, she overhears someone joyfully exclaiming about finally traveling to the grand capital. Groaning internally, she bitterly listens to her stepmother and Nana Zelia excitedly discussing their past capital trips. The wicked duo happily chatters about finally going shopping in the capital, just the two of them. Pausing her thoughts, she suddenly processes the wonderful fact that only those two are leaving today. A massive smile stretches across her face as she joyfully realizes she is finally completely free. Successfully sneaking out dressed like a young boy, she marvels at how packed the lively streets are. Standing before a rustic wooden building, she gazes upward and confirms this is the weapon shop. Pushing the heavy wooden door open with a chime, she steps inside and loudly calls out. The surprised shopkeeper notes she is a kid without parents, prompting her to awkwardly claim independence. Standing tall, she confidently declares her desire to buy a training sword and become a knight. Realizing her embarrassing outburst, she blushes slightly and quickly apologizes for shouting so loudly at him. Nodding slowly, the shopkeeper listens as she explains wanting something light yet sharp enough to defeat opponents. The shopkeeper confidently presents another intriguing option, asking if this particular item might catch her interest. Startled by the sudden reveal, her eyes widen as a sharp gasp escapes her parted lips. Admiring the incredibly sharp yet lightweight weapon, she happily accepts the merchant's generous special discount offer. Overjoyed by the successful purchase, she sincerely thanks the kind shopkeeper while securing her new gear. The cheerful merchant enthusiastically bids her farewell, warmly encouraging her to become a truly great knight. Having accomplished her primary mission, she casually decides to check out the remaining bustling market stalls. Knowing she only has this single day, she eagerly prepares to fully enjoy her rare freedom. Receiving a delightfully sweet treat from another vendor, she gratefully smiles and offers her warm thanks. Staring amazed at the beautiful dessert in her hands, she proudly realizes she actually bought it. Sparkling with absolute joy, she takes a moment to fully appreciate the adorable and sweet prize. She happily reflects that buying something this incredibly cute in public was impossible in her past. Previously leading a tough girl gang, she always played the cool and unshakable role everyone expected. Despite her fiercely tough exterior, she secretly adored reading romance stories, playing games, and sweet treats. She vividly remembers working incredibly hard to keep her softer and sweeter side a complete secret. Pausing her joyful stroll, she softly recalls that only one special person ever discovered her secret. That person was Miyabi, a terrifyingly fierce biker gang leader who surprisingly resembled a model student. She recalls finding him collapsed on the road and only planning to stay until he healed. For some strange reason, Miyabi took a strong liking to her and simply refused to leave her alone. He eventually discovered her hidden girly side but loyally kept her precious secret safe from everyone. Smiling softly at the warm memory, she finds looking back at their past quite pleasantly nostalgic. She wonders if the famously cold boy freaked out over her death or simply forgot her. A sudden wave of clarity washes over her as she finally remembers the tragic past events. She quietly realizes that her fateful demise happened in a dark and narrow alleyway like this. A sudden panting sound interrupts her thoughts, immediately pulling her attention toward the deep alley shadows. Squinting into the dense darkness, she wonders in confusion if her eyes are just playing tricks. Spotting a severely injured figure collapsed on the ground, she rushes forward frantically asking if they are okay. A heavily battered young man lies completely motionless against the cold wall in the dark alleyway. Kneeling beside the heavily bruised stranger, she quickly realizes she is getting absolutely no verbal response. Begging the mysterious stranger not to die, she frantically promises to quickly get a doctor for help. She successfully manages to bring the deeply unconscious young man into a nearby brightly lit clinic. The concerned doctor gravely warns her that the battered boy would not have survived much longer. Breathing a massive sigh of relief, she thankfully whispers her immense gratitude that he actually survived. Observing his elegant noble clothing, she curiously wonders exactly what kind of wealthy household he represents. She anxiously hopes that saving his life will not suddenly drag her into complicated noble family drama. The busy doctor apologizes and politely asks her to carefully keep a close eye on the patient. Left completely alone in the quiet room, she silently observes the peacefully sleeping young noble boy. She quickly notes that even while incredibly battered, the mysterious sleeping noble boy remains exceptionally handsome. Taking a much closer look at his face, she suddenly realizes she has definitely seen him before. She instantly recognizes his distinctive noble outfit, his soft kind eyes, his tied hair, and golden irises. Gasping in absolute shock, she firmly declares that she definitely knows this extremely familiar handsome face. She suddenly realizes the mysterious person standing right before her is Hetera, cleverly hidden in disguise. Hetera Grady, the powerful first prince of the Balan Empire, was undoubtedly the game's most popular romance target. She vividly remembers a specific game scenario where Hetera adopts this disguise to explore the bustling capital. Relieved by his recovery, she gladly checks on him while he groans and questions her unexpected presence. Looking utterly defeated, he bitterly asks why she bothered saving his life when he simply wanted to perish. Stunned by his incredibly dark words, she widens her eyes in sudden disbelief and quickly rising anger. Clenching her fists in intense frustration, she furiously wonders what absolute nonsense he just angrily muttered. She passionately yells at him to stop treating death lightly while others desperately fight tragic fates. Glaring intensely, she strictly scolds him for being incredibly rude to the person who just saved him. Suddenly remembering his royal status, she quickly backtracks and stammers out a highly nervous, panicked apology. Pausing her frantic thoughts momentarily, she suddenly realizes that this specific situation heavily reminds her of someone. A sharp memory of Miyabi quickly crosses her mind as she recalls him acting just as stubbornly. She vividly remembers Miyabi confessing his desire to fade away because he was sick of ordinary life. Smiling softly, she fondly recalls telling Miyabi that his failure to give up meant he should survive. The disguised prince silently stares at her with wide eyes, completely taken aback by her passionate outburst. Smirking confidently in her nostalgic memory, she cheekily told her past friend to consider it pure luck. Realizing she practically repeated those exact same words, she fondly remembers how he surprisingly reacted back then. She warmly remembers Miyabi gracefully accepting his unlucky fate while laughing brightly at the absolutely hilarious joke. A bittersweet sense of longing quietly fills her gentle heart as she softly whispers her former comrade's name. Snapping rapidly back to reality, she abruptly turns away and nervously announces her immediate departure from there. Stopping dead in her tracks, she listens in complete surprise as the disguised prince sincerely thanks her. He gently confesses that her remarkably powerful words successfully reminded him why he desperately wants to live. Utterly baffled by his sudden heartfelt vulnerability, she internally questions if Hetera was truly always this remarkably genuine. Smiling awkwardly at his earnest gratitude, she politely tells him she is glad before abruptly rushing away. Panicking slightly under his intense gaze, she frantically bids him a hasty farewell and quickly rushes away. Speeding down the alley, she rationalizes that his energetic talking proves he clearly needs no extra help. Glancing over her shoulder with lingering anxiety, she desperately hopes her true identity remains completely hidden now. Meanwhile, dark footsteps ominously echo against the pavement as a mysteriously cloaked figure steps into the alleyway. A chilling smile curls on the shadowy pursuer's face as they menacingly declare their long hunt is over. Starting the day with renewed focus, she quietly prepares herself for the intense challenges ahead. Relieved her stepmothers are absent, she excitedly thinks about finally getting essential daily training done. Pausing her activities, she carefully listens to hushed whispers claiming the first prince went missing. She realizes a week has passed since encountering Hetera without him returning to the capital. She reviews the complex royal family tree while recalling current crown prince candidates and emperors. Although first Prince Hetera remains the strongest candidate, he lost his beloved mother's crucial support. She remembers the second prince died in a carriage accident surrounded by shady, unconfirmed rumors. Meanwhile, the current empress and her corrupt noble allies selfishly back the third prince Sugri. Pondering the political landscape, she remembers the house of Marquis Agnes was originally deemed neutral. Sneaking closer to the conversing servants, she overhears someone quietly insisting this secret stays hidden. The gossiping maids suggest the lady of the house caused the first prince's sudden disappearance. Hearing this shocking revelation, her eyes quickly widen in sheer disbelief as she sharply gasps. The servant confirms the terrifying rumor by claiming she overheard conversations with a capital guest. She frantically wonders if these rumors make the house of Agnes a direct enemy of Hetera. Knowing her wicked stepmother, she fears a main route character might actually die before Dalia. Pushing herself to the absolute limit, she sprints rapidly through the quiet courtyard building strength. Sweat drips down her face as she pants heavily while continuing her grueling physical training routine. Gasping for breath, she internally panics because they can never level up if tragedy strikes. Slowing her rapid pace to a sudden halt, she looks up and utters a confused sound. Spotting a highly familiar figure standing nearby, she breathlessly begins whispering the name of Hetera. Startled by her sudden appearance, the boy stammers out a grateful thanks for the other day. When he gently asks about her injury, she confidently assures him she feels perfectly fine. Nodding in understanding, she internally questions why Hetera has not returned to the royal palace. Analyzing his lingering presence in her territory, she decides this entire situation is quite strange. Looking closely at her wooden practice weapon, he asks if a girl is practicing swordsmanship. Feeling defensive over his skeptical tone, she reacts strongly to him emphasizing her feminine gender. Realizing her true ambitions, he stares in disbelief and asks if she genuinely wants knighthood. Holding her head high, she firmly declares that gender should never matter with possessing skill. Gripping her sword tightly, she fiercely vows to prove that even girls can become knights. A tense silence falls between them as he silently absorbs the immense determination burning within. Smiling softly, he admits that the fierce fire within her heart reminds him of someone. Realizing his rudeness, he formally introduces himself as Hetera Grady, the first Grand Royal Prince. While already knowing his secret identity, she internally screams wishing he had never spoken aloud. Trying to calm her racing heart, she focuses entirely on his incredibly beautiful silver hair. Lost in his beautiful red eyes, she nervously stammers while attempting to properly introduce herself. He steps closer with a very gentle expression, creating an unexpectedly warm and intimate atmosphere. Gazing fondly at her flustered face, he softly murmurs that she is a truly beautiful person. Catching her completely off guard, he respectfully addresses her by her full name Dalia Agnes. She expresses utter confusion about him knowing her true name while he gently thanks her. Smiling warmly, he reveals they previously met as children and asks if she completely forgot. Letting out a soft gasp, she stares blankly ahead while completely lost in her swirling thoughts. A sudden jarring noise breaks the tense silence, causing her to flinch back in utter surprise. Hearing someone sternly call out Dalia, she quickly turns her head toward the unexpected voice. A haughty figure points firmly, strictly commanding her to stay exactly in that spot and behave. Flashing a deeply mocking smirk, the younger girl bids her older sister a highly sarcastic farewell. Lowering her gaze in absolute defeat, she meekly accepts the harsh treatment with a quiet agreement. Left completely isolated in the quiet surroundings, she stands frozen while carrying a heavy emotional burden. While desperately wishing to finally return home, she suddenly hears a mysterious person calling her attention. A charming young man approaches smoothly, formally introducing himself as Hetera Grady and confirming her identity. Taken completely off guard by his dazzling appearance, she stares at the royal prince in sheer shock. She wonders in complete bewilderment why the first prince would ever casually ask to converse with her. Despite her initial hesitation, her incredibly lonely heart begins to flutter fiercely under his gentle gaze. Utterly captivated by his immense charm, she nervously agrees as he completely steals her lonely heart. Snapping back to the present, she stammers as he generously offers to help with sword training. Finding the offer incredibly tempting, she cautiously questions if delaying his return to the capital is wise. He explains calmly that he is staying temporarily while his badly wounded attendant receives medical treatment. Smiling warmly at her, he gently suggests that this temporary arrangement will actually benefit her immensely. Considering his generous proposal carefully, a bright glimmer of genuine hope finally appears in her eyes. After a few eventful days quietly pass, a brand new training routine begins to unfold steadily. Heavy wooden swords clash fiercely against each other as intense physical training begins in the courtyard. The ringing sound of constant striking echoes loudly as both fighters move with incredibly swift agility. Collapsing from total exhaustion, she laments her loss while he kindly praises her highly impressive progress. Panting heavily from the rigorous spar, she sits on the ground wiping sweat from her brow. Looking up in sheer amazement, she realizes the powerful royal prince is not even breathing heavily. Recognizing his overwhelming strength, she silently wonders how such a capable warrior ended up severely wounded. The prince's expression darkens ominously as he coldly states that someone lacking willpower resembles a corpse. When she timidly asks for clarification, he swiftly dismisses her curiosity by claiming it remains unnecessary. Bowing her head slightly in quiet submission, she accepts his secretive refusal without pushing any further. Breaking the tense atmosphere, he unexpectedly reaches his elegant hand gently toward her slightly messy hair. Blinking her eyes in complete bewilderment, she freezes completely as his hand hovers extremely near her. Her heart races frantically as his handsome face leans in dangerously close to her blushing cheeks. He delicately brushes a fallen stray leaf away from her soft hair with an elegant motion. Pulling back with a gentle smile, he presents the tiny leaf that was previously stuck to her. Blushing furiously from the intimate proximity, she aggressively bows while stuttering out her highly embarrassed thanks. Swooning inwardly over his undeniable coolness, she briefly and foolishly imagines herself as a romance heroine. He confidently assures her that her newly honed skills are easily enough to pass the exams. When he offers to personally recommend her to the knights, she instantly waves her hands aggressively. Refusing any special royal treatment, she firmly declares that true victory requires earning it entirely alone. Meeting his intense gaze, she suddenly feels deeply unsettled as his piercing stare strongly resembles Miyabi. The royal prince silently continues to observe her strong rebellious spirit with a deeply unreadable expression. Their quiet moment shatters completely when a dark-haired attendant suddenly calls out to the royal prince. Appearing highly exhausted and incredibly frustrated, the breathless newcomer glares directly toward the casually relaxing prince. The prince mockingly compares the frustrated attendant to a loyal dog finally tracking its master down. The worried aide severely scolds the prince about recent dangers while the royal merely dismisses him. Observing the man's striking purple eyes and navy hair, a shocking realization hits her completely out of nowhere. She terrifyingly identifies the man as Ajiga Inkent, the notorious character from her deadly ruin route. Trembling internally, she remembers this extremely dangerous personal aide is destined to personally murder her someday. A cold sweat nervously rolls down her pale face as genuine panic completely paralyzes her body. Connecting the dots flawlessly, she realizes this deeply terrifying man was the supposedly injured royal attendant. The hostile aide locks his cold eyes onto her with a deeply threatening and silent glaring expression. Stepping forward aggressively, he harshly questions her identity while firmly demanding proper respect for the prince. Overwhelmed by his massive hostility, she nervously wonders why this dangerous aide is acting so intense. His sharp purple eyes narrow with extreme suspicion, practically promising immediate doom if she ever misbehaves. A silent knight carefully observes his royal master while pondering a hidden change in his current demeanor. The observant knight silently wonders when His Highness actually looked genuinely happy while watching him stand still. Reflecting on 10 years ago, he warmly recalls the first prince was almost too innocent for his position. The stern Marquis Scabiosa Agnes steps forward while respectfully greeting His Highness after a significantly long absence. The polite Marquis gracefully suggests the prince speak with his similarly aged daughter at the upcoming party. Smiling warmly, the young prince happily agrees to the polite invitation without displaying any slight hesitation. The Marquis softly reveals his daughter is named Dalia while noting she strongly resembles his late wife. Hearing the name Dalia, the prince vividly pictures striking silver hair and captivating ruby eyes with awe. The frantic servant urgently calls out to His Highness as the young prince suddenly stares blankly ahead. The knight proudly notes the prince became a mature ruler while secretly missing his past gentle warmth. Despite his usual coldness, His Highness genuinely seemed highly excited to meet Lady Dalia at the tea party. Running rapidly to his side, the concerned knight quickly asks if something is deeply troubling His Highness. Staring blankly with a shattered expression, the devastated prince quietly whispers that he was entirely wrong. From that fateful day onward, the Hollow Prince began drifting through life looking completely uninterested in everything. A heavy silence fills the air as the somber prince quietly processes the crushing weight of his disappointment. The shocked knight marvels at how incredibly focused and truly alive the prince seemed just now with Dalia. Watching him closely, the loyal knight confidently concludes there is absolutely no doubt Lady Dalia affects him. Meanwhile, Dalia thoughtfully contemplates her highly dangerous upcoming journey while silently planning her absolute best path forward. Realizing the grand capital is incredibly far away, she notes she will definitely need to arrange a carriage. Hearing a sudden polite knock, she turns as the head butler abruptly enters while respectfully excusing his intrusion. The calm butler politely explains he came in place of her assigned maid because the girl feels unwell. Staring at the supposedly allied head butler, she nervously wonders if she should truly ask for his help. The serious head butler directly addresses Lady Dalia, boldly asking if she genuinely wishes to join the knights. Shocked by his direct question, she bravely asks the strict head butler if he will try stopping her. Stunned when he asks why he would do that, she listens as he earnestly begs to assist her. Promising to arrange a carriage in absolute secret, the butler surprises her into excitedly asking if he would. Worrying about her wicked stepmother finding out, she anxiously asks if his bold actions would fatally endanger him. Looking completely heartbroken, the loyal butler tearfully admits he never truly helped her and deeply wants no regrets. Dalia gazes at the deeply emotional man while feeling entirely moved by his surprisingly heartfelt declaration of loyalty. Reassuring him gently, she blames her wicked family's intense pressure while warmly calling the weeping butler too kind. Promising a secret carriage in exactly 3 days, the emotional butler listens as she sincerely thanks him endlessly. The solemn butler pauses in silence before preparing to deliver one final, deeply important piece of emotional information. Staring earnestly into her wide eyes, the serious head butler quietly asks if she fiercely resents the master. Dalia falls totally silent, looking completely taken aback by this incredibly direct question about her highly distant father. Asking to gracefully correct his earlier statement, the butler solemnly admits it is undeniably true that he changed. Revealing a shocking truth, the butler swears the master never pressured him and truly loved Lady Dalia deeply. Staring in complete confusion at this sudden revelation, she hesitantly asks why he is eagerly saying this now. Acknowledging how incredibly convenient it sounds, the butler fiercely insists the master always kept Dalia in his thoughts. Gazing at the sincere man, she quietly notes the head butler definitely does not look like a liar. Smiling gently despite her massive internal doubts, she thanks him for telling her while struggling to believe it. She realizes that if this is actually true, the original Dalia would have been completely overjoyed. She solemnly recalls how Dalia desperately kept craving her cruel family's love right until the very end. Exactly 3 days later, a highly decisive and completely transformative moment finally arrives for the young girl. Walking quietly through the halls, she carefully looks around her surroundings while planning her next major move. A harsh and demanding voice suddenly interrupts her thoughts, angrily questioning what she is doing out here. Turning around slowly, she stares blankly at the stern woman and quietly acknowledges her wicked stepmother. The furious mother sharply scolds her for wearing such embarrassing clothes while cruelly asking if she lacks shame. Declaring that severe punishment is entirely necessary, the older woman fiercely commands Dalia to visit her room. Showing absolutely no fear, the defiant girl bluntly replies that she has nothing to say to her mother. She boldly declares her independence while reminding the woman that she was never treated like a real daughter. Finding the entire situation completely pathetic, she fiercely questions why she should ever keep following those oppressive orders. Enraged by this sudden disrespect, the furious stepmother violently swings her hand forward to strike the young girl. Lashing out in pure anger, the wicked woman loudly demands to know who successfully raised this ungrateful brat. Catching the incoming wrist with immense strength, Dalia coldly states she never once asked to be forcefully raised. A sharp squeak of genuine terror escapes the stunned stepmother as her painful wrist is powerfully squeezed tight. The stepmother frantically screams for someone to immediately lock the rebellious brat up inside the dark underground dungeon. Dalia suddenly notices the imposing arrival of her father while bracing herself for an incoming dramatic family moment. Playing the pathetic victim, the stepmother dramatically complains that Dalia is repaying all her maternal love with betrayal. Standing tall with a highly unreadable expression, the imposing patriarch sternly calls out his young daughter's name. Looking directly into her eyes, he firmly commands that she must securely leave this massive household for now. As Dalia reacts with absolute shock, he firmly orders her to go away with the loyal head butler. Her eyes widen immensely as she silently processes this incredibly unexpected twist regarding her highly uncertain personal fate. Confused by his help, she nervously plots to make a desperate run for it at the right moment. Noticing her defensive and guarded posture, her father calmly advises the young girl not to be so tense. Revealing his knowledge of her plans, he calmly confirms that the butler has already explained her capital dreams. She stares at him in disbelief while wondering why the loyal head butler is secretly on his side. Fearing captivity, she asks if he plans to lock her away to stop her from becoming a knight. Knowing he understands her unyielding resolve, she vows to make it to the capital no matter what happens. Seeing her immense determination, he surprisingly yields and calmly states that there is no need to stop her. Utterly bewildered by this sudden display of leniency, she freezes in place and stammers out a confused question. Furious at his hypocrisy, she viciously yells at him for acting like a father after ignoring everything previously. He stands silently before her, casting his heavy gaze downwards while absorbing her painful and justified emotional outburst. Breaking the heavy silence, he softly admits his past failures by uttering a single word of regretful agreement. With a heavy heart, he concedes to her intense anger and openly admits that she is entirely right. Putting aside the past, he strictly urges her to finally go because the head butler is already waiting. Still harboring deep resentment inside her soul, she glares at the old man with a complex emotional expression. Refusing to forgive him immediately, she sharply clicks her tongue in annoyance while bitterly processing the entire situation. Accepting this temporary truce, she quietly mutters her final reluctant agreement before preparing to depart the grand estate. Turning her back on the toxic family permanently, she confidently strides away toward her anticipated and glorious freedom. Leaving the grim mansion behind, she walks forward into a bright new future dictated by her own choices. Offering one single word of advice, the knight seriously questioned if he intended to leave his wife unchecked. Deciding to leave a parting gift, she reasoned that the man might not share his wife's dark scheme. Offering a warm gesture before parting ways, she sincerely told the loyal man to take care of himself. Meanwhile, a quiet horse-drawn carriage steadily traveled across the landscape beneath the vast and wide open blue skies. Gazing thoughtfully out the small window of the moving carriage, Dalia quietly mumbled a soft, solitary agreement. Sighing heavily in her seat, she complained that spending most of the day riding was surprisingly stressful. Suddenly, a violent jolt aggressively rocked the small carriage as something completely unexpected blocked their ongoing path. Reeling from the sudden shaking impact, the terrified driver shrieked and frantically wondered what had just happened. Panic instantly filled the chaotic air as the frightened driver wildly screamed about an unexpected bandit ambush. Peeking out the carriage window, Dalia frustratingly questioned if highway bandits actually existed in this fantasy world too. Spotting her distinct silver hair and red eyes, the fierce bandit excitedly declared she was their target. Stepping out confidently, she warned them to prepare for defeat while gleefully welcoming a proper, engaging fight. Cracking her knuckles with intense anticipation, she boldly stepped forward and signaled the imminent physical confrontation. After quickly subduing the helpless attackers, she menacingly grabbed one and angrily demanded to know their employer. The trembling bandit frantically cried out that they were merely paid mercenaries who knew absolutely nothing else. Dropping the defeated thug in disappointment, she frustratingly realized that she still lacked the mysterious employer's identity. An amused masculine voice suddenly echoed from behind as a familiar figure noted her fiercely impressive combat skills. Stepping smoothly out from the gathering shadows, the disguised prince gracefully offered a highly polite evening greeting. Shocked by his sudden appearance, she stammered a greeting while he explained his deep concern for her safety. Surveying the groaning bandits scattered everywhere, the royal calmly admitted that his intense worries were clearly unnecessary. He asked in total disbelief if she single-handedly defeated everyone without any help from the nearby knights. Hearing about secret guards behind her, Dalia spun around with a completely baffled and highly confused expression. Emerging from the dense foliage, a group of fully armored guards sheepishly revealed their previously hidden presence. Realizing they were secretly following her all along, she finally understood why leaving home was surprisingly easy. Drawing their gleaming swords aggressively, the fiercely protective guards angrily ordered the disguised stranger to step back. Stepping fiercely in front of the prince, a commanding royal guard sternly ordered the knights to stand down. The imposing royal knight furiously revealed that they were foolishly threatening His Highness Prince Hedera himself. Immediately dropping to their trembling knees, the completely terrified house guards frantically offered their most sincere apologies. Addressing the bowing guards calmly, the curious prince asked if the Marquis personally sent them for protection. As they confirmed their orders, Dalia quietly wondered if her distant father was secretly colluding with her stepmother. She silently questioned why her evil stepmother would send attackers while her father simultaneously provided secret protective guards. Observing her conflicted expression, Hedera softly suggested that her father clearly did not entirely oppose her independent actions. Looking up at the gentle prince with hopeful eyes, she quietly asked if he truly believed that sentiment. Suddenly narrowing his observant eyes, the prince abruptly reached his steady hand out toward her battered form. Gently touching her heavily bandaged shoulder, his eyes darkened with concern as he softly noted her existing injuries. When he fiercely asked if the bandits caused this pain, she quickly shook her head in rapid denial. Staring deeply into her eyes, the protective prince intensely demanded to know exactly who inflicted those severe wounds. Desperately avoiding the heavy question, she loudly insisted she was fine while declaring her departure for the capital. Declaring solo travel too incredibly risky, the handsome prince playfully invited the stunned girl to ride alongside him. Blushing nervously at his royal offer, she awkwardly admitted her lack of equestrian experience and overwhelming hesitation. Offered the choice of riding in front or back, she hesitatingly chooses the slightly more dangerous back. As he confidently instructs her to hold tightly around his waist, a startled squeak escapes her lips. She suddenly remembers the famous horseback riding scene with the prince, realizing this is a total dream. Gripping him closely as the sturdy horse begins to move, she braces herself for the upcoming journey. Announcing their departure with great enthusiasm, the dashing prince spurs the magnificent horse into a swift gallop. As the wind rushes swiftly past them, he happily asks if the exhilarating ride feels absolutely amazing. Praising her impressive first-time riding skills, he smiles while she humbly replies that he flatters her greatly. Although the rough movement is slightly tricky to navigate, she focuses intently on maintaining her steady balance. Leaning against Hedera's remarkably broad back, she feels incredibly safe and realizes her fear has completely vanished. Gazing upward at the shifting scenery, a sudden rush of distant nostalgia quietly sparks an old memory. She fondly recalls a previous life where she once rode securely behind Miyabi on a fast motorcycle. Pausing her nostalgic thoughts, she suddenly wonders what tragically happened to her beloved bike back on Earth. Despite constantly avoiding the dark thought, she finally accepts the grim possibility of her actual tragic death. Breaking her somber internal musings, a soft and genuinely warm chuckle suddenly escapes the prince's relaxed lips. Smiling gently, he quietly expresses his immense gladness that they get to peacefully ride together once again. Utterly confused by his highly specific wording, she silently questions what he meant by riding together again. Before she can question him, the horse jolts sharply and he quickly warns her to be careful. Pushing the lingering confusion aside, she decides to simply focus on Hedera's comforting warmth until the capital.